Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for your patience with us this morning as we sorted out a few technical difficulties. We're so glad that you've joined us for this online gathering as spiritual seekers, united in community, united in a quest for wisdom, ancient and new, with which to meet our lives and our time with grace and with gratitude. My name is Nancy Steves. I'm a member of the ministry team here, and my teammate Christopher New is taking some well-earned vacation time. I'm joined by Micah on the piano, Carolyn on cello, and also leading us in song today, Dawn, who will be placing her voice with us in story and in reading, and Joseph, who's with us here in the booth providing technical support. We all greet you and are grateful that you've taken this time to connect with us, to share this time together, where we can reflect on our lives and on how we're living. Today, we begin a new summer series. We begin exploring Windows to Wonder, a time to ponder everyday sacraments. Today, we'll spend some time learning the wisdom that the flowers can teach us. Wherever you're joining us from today, whether you're part of the SSUC community in Edmonton or in Saskatoon, or part of our online community in British Columbia or Saskatchewan or New Brunswick, wherever your life has placed you, on whatever ground you call home, I invite us each to pause, to name and to honor the legacy of this land's first peoples. Whether you live on unceded territory or treaty lands, take this moment to acknowledge the traditions, the culture, the heritage, the ceremonies, the spiritualities of those first to learn the wisdom of the place you call home. For us, as SSUC Edmonton or SSUC Saskatoon, we honor the Cree peoples of Treaty 6, the Métis people of this land. And we commit ourselves to a more respectful and honorable future with one another, seeking to heal the wounds of colonialism and racism, and to learn a new way of mutuality together with one another. Each time we gather, we take a moment to create a focus in our space, to light a candle. So if you have a candle, I invite you to light yours with me. As we light our candle, we celebrate the resilience of morning, the great conspiracy of life to emerge from night into day, from darkness into light. We take this time in the presence of our candle to center ourselves in this new day, in this new week, in a moment we've never seen before. May we open to what our heart needs in order that we might be who the world needs us to be. May we open to take from this time whatever it is we need that will nurture, encourage, strengthen each of us to be all that we can be, wholly and healthfully ourselves.
I sing a song to the mountains.
Dawn and I are going to share a story in our Time for All Ages that we've shared before at SSUC. It's the story of the boy who grew flowers. It's written by Jen Vojtovich, and the illustrations are by Steve Adams. Rink Bogan was a boy from the deep country. He lived out past where the blacktop road became a dirt road, and the dirt road petered out into a little footpath. The path wound through the ancient trees of a wild forest, hopped Black Bear Creek, headed all the way up Lonesome Mountain, made a right-hand turn and ran smack into the Bogans' door.
The Bogans were the only folks who lived on Lonesome Mountain. The townspeople argued as to whether it was because they were such strange folk that they lived there, or whether it was because they lived there that they were such strange folk. However, everyone agreed that the Bogan clan was a hotbed of strange and exotic talents. Rink's Uncle Dud liked to tame rattlesnakes, and his brothers and cousins were all shapeshifters.
But Rink himself had the most special talent of all. During the full moon, he sprouted flowers all over his body. It was a beautiful sight. And they were the prettiest, sweetest smelling, and longest lasting blossoms you ever saw. Some folk might say homesick in bed if they happened to sprout, but not Rink. Every morning following a full moon, his mama would gently clip the flowers from her boy, and off he would go to school.
Now, Rink liked school. At least he liked the thinking and the reading part. But he was shy and quiet and different from the other children. So the teacher gave him a seat at the back of the room and did not bother with him. As for the children, they had all heard rumors about Rink's strange relatives, so they stayed at a safe distance from him.
One day, Angelina Quiz came along, a girl whose family was in the ballroom dancing business and had just moved from Tuscaloosa. She was what some would call a plain girl. She had an easy manner, a luminous smile, and her right leg was shorter than her left by an inch. She always wore a flower right behind her right ear. Rink liked her straight away.
And so did everyone else. Angelina was always surrounded by friends. Rink observed her from a distance. She is forthright and honest, yet always kind, he thought. He also admired the flowers she wore behind her ear, a different one every day, and all of them as lovely as she. As for Angelina Quiz, she soon wondered about this quiet boy who sat alone at the back of the class. So she asked the other children about him. His Uncle Dud has a pet rattlesnake called Fat Lucy, and she sleeps on the end of his bed, hissed Fuster Shrimp. And his mother uses a bowling bag for a purse, giggled Shirley Ann Smith. And his granny was raised by wolves, snickered Gertrude Prug. But Angelina did not laugh. Why won't anyone talk to him, she asked. The others fell silent. The question rattled in their minds.
One afternoon, the teacher announced that the school dance would be held that Saturday night at the church hall. Several of her classmates asked Angelina to go, but she smiled bravely and shook her head no.
I wouldn't be much of a dancing partner, she laughed. Rink was struck by the wistful note he heard in her voice. She comes from a dancing family, he thought. I bet she loves music. I bet she'd really like to go to that dance. The minute the teacher's back was turned, Rick slipped out the door. No one noticed except Angelina, who glanced back at his empty chair every now and then. She marveled at how his absence could take the shine off such a pretty, sunny day.
When Rink reached his home, high on Lonesome Mountain, he went straight to his Uncle Dud's room. He rummaged under the bed until he came up with several feet of Fat Lucy's shucked-off skin. Next, he dug through the door, his mama's bowling bag, until he found a needle and spool of silk thread. Then, in the tumble-down, shed off the kitchen, he turned up an old leather mule saddle.
Rink sat down and cleared his mind. He thought intently about Angelina's feet. He pictured their shape and size and the inch of space between her right foot and the floor. Then he cut and stitched and glued. He worked right through from Thursday afternoon until Saturday morning.
When Rink was finally done, there on the table stood the loveliest pair of snakeskin slippers that had ever been seen this side of Black Bear Creek. The sole of the right slipper was 1 inch thicker than the left, so that Angelina could stand true and straight and tall. Rink imagined her dancing. He thought that thought so long, and the feeling deep inside him was so pleasant, that even though the full moon had not yet risen, he sprouted a bunch of wild pink roses from the top of his head.
That afternoon, Rink followed the footpath down through the forest, across the Black Bear Creek, along the dirt road, on up to the Blacktop Road and up the hill. Halfway up the hill, he opened a small gate and walked up the little path that led right to Angelina's front porch. Angelina was helping her mama sew up a fancy new tango dress. The whole house was quiet. Every little snip of the scissors made a sad little tweak in her heart. She thought about Rink and how she had missed him at school all day Friday.
When Angelina heard a knock at the door, her heart flipped. There stood Rink, with a bunch of wild pink roses in his left hand and a pair of snakeskin slippers in his right. "These are for you," he said. "If you wear these, you'll dance just fine." Angelina wriggled her bare toes into the slippers then and there. For the first time in her life, she felt herself stand up straight. She took one step, then another, and then she did a little practice dance step. Angelina looked at Rink with delight.
"Will you be my dancing partner?" she asked. "I don't know how to do that kind of dancing," said Rink shyly. "Well, I'll teach you," cried Angelina. "I've watched my family so many times, I know all of the steps by heart." She took his hand, and they danced together down the path.
After the dance, Rink walked Angelina home. They stopped on the way and sat under an old buttonball tree. Angelina told Rink about her family, and he told her about his. Then, with a pounding heart, he revealed to her the fact that he sprouted flowers all over himself during the full moon. Angelina smiled with delight. Then she bent down and showed Rink where the flower she wore grew right out from behind her ear.
From that day on, Angelina Quiz and Rink Bowigan were fast friends. Angelina wore her snakeskin slippers every day, and when the slippers wore out, Rink made her another pair. He has been making all of her shoes for 25 years now. The two of them have their own house up on Lonesome Mountain. Only these days it's called Sweet Blossom Hill. Gardening is how Angelina and Rink earn their living. Actually, it's a family business. You see, every one of their 7 children was born with a green thumb.
We all have our botanical secrets, our quirks and our quarks, our unique gifts to share with the world. Our challenge, just like Rink and Angelina, our challenge is to sprout our differences with pride and confidence and joy. These are the words of Ron Atkinson in his writing, A Fire in the Rain, meditations and reflections from his life and work on Quadra Island. This is his piece entitled, Late Roses. I go to the rose bed every day. There are some roses and buds lingering. I, who one day must also make my ending, want to learn from the roses. The bed is filling with the early leaves first to fall in a prelude to autumn. There's an aroma of change, an altered light. A sense of motion is inescapable, yet the bees continue their fellowship with the roses. Seeing a bee enter the body of a rose, entering her very holy of holiest, we may desire to follow, to learn that inner secret. If only our egos were small enough, our imagination would let us in. Once inside, like the bee, we might relax and take our ease in that spicy sanctuary. The microcosmic universe deliciously enfolds us. We let ourselves be embraced by such reality. The bee in the rose is inside the body of love, as we are inside the larger universe. Swirls of petals are like stars from the closest to the farthest out, to the uttermost circle of all. One summer day, the wind changed. A wind which usually brings the brightest sunny days blew up a gale from Butte Inlet. It brought a cold and torrential rain. I looked out and saw that my wife was already trying to rescue some blooms. It poured down so hard she had to take refuge in the garden shed. The rain pelted the petals and left them lying in the mud. I went out with an umbrella and held it while she cut the blossoms not yet ruined. Inside, we placed the blossoms on a dark table against the white wall. Rich pink and aromatic roses, they showed no sign of their ordeal, their trial toward death. In their reprieve, they proclaimed gladness, munificence, and peace. In their acquittal, they wore a bravado and blessing, an extravagance with a secret. Of course, in the days that followed, little by little, the roses became so open that the silken petals fell and lay on the polished mahogany. Finally, they joined the earthy working of the compost. In these words, may we find wisdom for the living of our lives. These are the words of Pauline Peterson in her brief poem entitled A Sacrament. Become that high priest, the bee. Drone your way from one fragrant temple to another, nosing into each altar. Drink what's divine. And while you're there, let some of the sacred cling to your limbs. Wherever you go, leave a small trail of its golden crumbs. In your wake, the world unfolds its rapture, the fruit of its blossoming. Rooms in your house fill with that sweetness your body both makes and eats. May we find wisdom in these words of Pauline Peterson, wisdom for our living.
It's not that unusual when everything is beautiful. It's just another ordinary miracle today. The sky knows when it's time to snow. Don't need to teach a seed to grow. It's just another ordinary miracle today. Life is like a gift, they say, wrapped up for you every day. Open up and find a way to give some of your own. Isn't it remarkable? Like every time a raindrop falls, it's just another ordinary miracle today. Birds in winter have their fling, but always make it home by spring. It's just another ordinary miracle today. When you wake up every day, please don't throw your dreams away. Hold them close to your heart, 'cause we are all a part of the ordinary miracle. Do you want to see a miracle? It seems so exceptional that things just work out after all. It's just another ordinary miracle today. The sun comes up and shines so bright and disappears again at night. It's just another ordinary miracle today. It's just another ordinary miracle today.
A reading from the Christian tradition from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 6. Words attributed to Jesus of Nazareth. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Isn't life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet they are fed. And can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your lifespan? And why do you worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. But I tell you, even King Solomon in all of his glory was not clothed like one of these flowers. This is a teaching passed down to us from the first century. In it may we find wisdom.
I wonder how we missed the forest for the trees. How did the Christian tradition come to think that it could ever count sacraments. That on one hand or two hands we could count all the actual number of sacraments, the number of sacred rituals, the number of sacred ceremonies, the number of sacred moments, the number of sacred things that dispense grace. That we could name and number the signs of sacredness. One branch of the Christian family says there's 7 sacraments. The Roman Catholic tradition says there's the sacrament of baptism, sacrament of reconciliation, Eucharist, confirmation, the anointing of the sick, holy orders, and marriage. And the Protestants say there's only 2, baptism and Eucharist, or communion as we call it. That these are the sole purveyors of grace, the special signs or symbols of a spiritual reality, so special that they require consecrated people to administer them, priests to dispense. Didn't we make the same mistake when we said there were 7 wonders of the world? Who can begin to count the windows to wonder? Who can begin to count the sacraments that present themselves to us every day? We inherit a body of teaching from a great itinerant sage of the 1st century. Many of the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth come to us from the dusty roads of 1st century Palestine, on the road to Samaria or on the way to Jerusalem, on the hillside overlooking the Galilee, in the villages around the sea. But some of the most important teachings were when Jesus and his friends went off-road, when they wandered through fields. What if everything we really need to know about this great mystery we call life could really be learned from an ordinary flower in an ordinary field? Maybe Robert Fulghum didn't get it quite right. Maybe everything we really need to learn, we could have learned long before we went to kindergarten. In the world of the ancient stories passed down to us, there's a time when Jesus invited his anxiety-ridden friends to step off the dusty road they were walking, step away from the demands of daily life, all the distractions of the domestic, and just stroll through a field. I don't think this was a romanticized experience of the natural world. We've all discovered that those beautiful fields full of wildflowers are also full of thistles and uneven ground, and that they're populated with bees and insects and mosquitoes that dislodge that picture-perfect postcard we have in our heads. Having survived storms on the Galilee and having lived in the desert extremes of their land, surely Jesus and his friends are well acquainted with the natural world, not only as a place of beauty, but also a place of peril. Not only a place of life, but also a place of death. Jesus and his friends lived in anxious times, in uncertain times, in a land that was occupied by a foreign power, where fear was the order of the day, and where the gap was ever widening between the disgustingly rich and the desperately poor, where it was all about survival of the fittest, the prevailing wisdom that taught you to watch your back, to look out for number one. In the middle of the field, Jesus invites his friends to pay attention to the flowers and let them teach you how to live, to learn to live as they do. When we come into communion with a flower, giving it our undivided attention, we find ourselves in the company of a creature that's so brief in its beauty, and yet so seemingly content in the field where life has placed it. Opening to the sun, yielding to the rain, giving its life back to the earth, opening so wide until it doesn't have a petal left. A friend once told me that she could never be bored as long as there was a flower in the world, that she could stare into the face of a flower forever. If we were to take up the invitation we heard in the reading a moment ago, if we were to consider the lilies, if we were to consider the roses and the pansies and the petunias and the dandelions, if we were to consider the flowers of the field, we'd peer through the window to wonder and ponder how it is that we too can rise up out of the broken ground beneath our being, how we can rise up in our broken hearts that beat within us and let ourselves be open. Let ourselves go wide in vulnerability in whatever garden we find ourselves, to blossom and bloom in our place, to take our place colorfully and unabashedly in the family of things. If we look long and hard into the fragile face of a flower, we find ourselves in the company of a being which seems to know life itself as sacrament. Flowers appear to receive life as gift. The seed that dies in the ground and rises to life and lives and dies again and again. And they look like they never get over it. Like they never get over the miracle of being here. They rise without the arrogance of entitlement and embrace their brief lives gracefully, perhaps even gratefully. Maybe that's the prescription for anxiety. Maybe the deep amazement born of gratitude is the best antitoxin in the world for anxiety. Therefore, I tell you, Jesus says, don't worry about your life. Look at the birds. Consider the flowers and take your cue from them. If we breathe deeply in the field, we notice that the flower's fragrance becomes more powerful as death approaches. Flowers don't close themselves off to the world, sensing that their day is almost done. Instead, they keep opening wider and wider, surrendering their petals until it becomes the humus of newness. They stand in the trust of today, without any claim on the future, and without clinging to the bulb of the past. To live like flowers is to live by letting go. To be so fully present to the gift of this moment that we don't need to make a claim upon another, any other moment. In the world of the story, according to Jesus, they don't toil. They don't spin. They don't tie themselves up into knots. They don't get ulcers. They don't lose sleep. They don't sweat the small stuff. They're not preoccupied with the big stuff. They just keep opening and opening until there's nothing left to open. It doesn't seem to occur to them to ask how long they must be lilies or roses or dandelions or petunias, and then what? Life is about surrender, not acquiescence, but acceptance. That it's enough to have this fragile and precious life. this life we share with one another, and then surrender to the endless ground of becoming. Maybe that powerful perfume at the end of a flower's life is actually the fragrance of acceptance. The scent that comes from embracing the long story of beginnings and endings that are hidden to us. Accepting the contours and vulnerabilities of life. Accepting the limits of a lifetime and know that they're just a chapter in an epic journey of love. So how about we stop counting the sacraments and start discovering the fields that invite us into them, the flowers that are with us now so briefly in this season that have so much to teach us while they're here. Let's open to the windows of wonder and wander and learn from ordinary miracles, the everyday sacraments that whisper their wisdom to us. Let's all be priests, just like the bees, and immerse ourselves in the wisdom that will teach us how to live. We take this moment as we are with one another to strengthen our intentions, to pray together. We share these words as our prayer with one another. We open to the sacredness at the heart of all, beyond our capacity to name, but within our experience to know. We open to the oneness to which we belong, to the beauty and brevity of life. We come seeking to dismantle the fears that isolate us, to shrink our arrogance and stretch our compassion, to open our eyes, unclench our fists, unstop our ears, and let wonder have its way in us. And so we pray. Amen. We want to share a few invitations and announcements with you as we're together with one another today. You can always reach us with the contact information that you find on the screen. Although our office has remained closed over the summer and our facility has been closed and will continue to be closed over the summer months because of the pandemic, our grounds are open, and all of these ways of communicating with us are available. So we invite you to be in touch with us. If you need to be in any way, we are available. I also want to celebrate with Chad and Meredith, who celebrated their marriage yesterday, or on Friday rather, on July the 2nd, out at Hastings Lake. Chris celebrated with them, and they came through all the challenges of planning a wedding during COVID, and had a wonderful day together on Friday. So our celebration with Chad and Meredith. We also want to thank you for all the ways you support us. Those of you who are able to support us financially, whether it's with a one-time gift or regular giving, whether the gift is small or great, every way that you support us is helpful to us, and you'll see on the screen some easy ways, if you're able to contribute financially, ways to do that.
Beauty is within us, beauty is between us, beauty is unfolding in us, beauty is around us.
We take this moment to breathe our best intentions into the light within us, the light between us, the light beyond us. We go to let our light shine, to consider the lilies, to pay attention to the birds, to be like Emily Dickinson, who said the only commandment that she never broke was the commandment to consider the lilies. So we go to look through all the windows of wonder, to ponder the everyday sacraments that meet us along the way, to keep one another safe and well until we're together again. May you have a peaceful and beautiful week.